Christmas Eve. I got out of the taxi without telling anyone. Snow covered the sidewalks like flour, and Aspen's wind cut at my face at 36 degrees. I pulled up my coat collar and stood before the Whitmore's house. A mansion with framed windows, a lit fireplace, people laughing. I'd spent decades as an ER nurse. I thought I'd seen every kind of cold. Not this one. The cold of seeing my daughter outside, shaking without so much as a blanket. "Olivia," I whispered. She was curled up on a porch chair, a thin blouse clinging to her wet body, hair plastered to her forehead. I knelt, took off my heavy coat, and wrapped her shoulders. Her skin was icy, pale, like a patient's hand in shock. "Mom," she murmured before collapsing against my chest. I lifted Olivia in my arms, feeling her light weight and shallow breaths. Inside, my son-in-law's family was toasting. Champagne flutes clinked, a Patek Philippe ticked on the shelf, and jingle bells blared like mockery. His father, Gregory Whitmore, former bank president and political donor, raised his glass with a satisfied smile. His mother, Eleanor, flaunted a pearl necklace like a trophy. His sister, Abigail, filmed the lavish table to post, golden roast turkey, cornbread stuffing, cranberry salad, ridiculously expensive wines. But my daughter was outside, trembling. I shoved the door with my shoulder. I walked in carrying Olivia and said 6 words that cut through the music. "Good thing I'm here now." The room froze. Eleanor arched a brow, glass in hand. "What a surprise, Nora. Why didn't you call? We would have prepared a welcome." I stared at her. "If I'd called, you would have hidden this." I looked at Olivia, curled in my arms. Ryan, my son-in-law, appeared behind his mother, shirt half unbuttoned, posturing like master of the house. "Shut the door, Mom. She likes drama," he said, with a short laugh. Abigail exhaled. She wanted some fresh air. Too sensitive. Gregory cleared his throat. "Family matters stay in the family, and a woman who doesn't give airs needs to learn to endure." Each word cut deeper. I laid Olivia on the couch, covered her with my scarf, rubbed her hands to bring warmth. Her chest heaved. I felt anger rise like a fever. "This isn't a domestic hiccup," I said quietly. "This is abuse." Ryan took a step forward. "In my house, I set the tone." I met his eyes without blinking. "And in my life, I set the boundaries." Through the fogged glass, I saw Jake, one of my former community center students, now an Aspen police officer, standing on the porch. I made an almost imperceptible gesture. "Not yet." He nodded. I had witnesses. I had the truth. I had my entire profession whispering inside me, stabilize the patient, identify the abuser, document everything. The party finally stopped. The mood turned hostile, despite the luxury. The laughter died. And I decided that night, no one would leave Olivia outside again, not the house, and not her own story. If you can hear my voice, like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. Justice starts with a single step. Hours earlier, still at the Aspen airport, the warmth of reunions hit me. Parents hugging kids, red hats, distant bells. Me, with my rolling suitcase and my old nurse ID badge in my pocket, only wanted to see Olivia smile again. I called. It rang and rang. Nothing. I texted, "Honey, surprise? I'm almost there." The read receipt never popped up. I tried again. Silence. The intuition I learned in the ER, the one that flares before the monitor beeps, lit up inside me. I grabbed a cab. The road climbed between pines, houses with warm lights, a choir singing Silent Night at the chapel. I remembered how little Olivia would ask me to stay 5 more minutes in bed, and I'd say the shift doesn't wait. I promised myself that, now retired, I'd learn to wait for her. The driver commented on the neighborhood. Only CEOs, hedge funds, and celebrity attorneys live there. I smirked. Money doesn't buy character, it only amplifies it. At an intersection, I saw orange cones and an officer directing traffic. I rolled the window down. "Jake?" He turned with the same boyish smile from the community center. Now, crisp uniform, radio on his shoulder. "Ms. Nora, you're back?" I nodded. "Christmas with Olivia." His smile faltered. A muscle twitched in his jaw, as if holding back a sentence. "Everything okay over there?" I asked softly. "Best if you head straight there," he answered. A little too formal for someone who used to call me Teach when I taught first aid to the youth team. I asked the driver to stop a block early. I wanted to surprise her, catch that first look. Snow crunched under my boots. The Whitmore's house looked like a postcard. Perfect wreath, warm light, a long table draped in red. Through the picture window, I saw tall stems, auction-level Bordeaux, crystal sparkling. On the sideboard, next to a Patek Philippe, a photo of the Whitmores, shaking hands with a governor. Important people, I whispered to myself. I searched for Olivia with my eyes. I didn't see her. I heard laughter. Someone told a joke. Then the barbs came, sharp as a scalpel in a quiet surgical field. Gregory's deep voice. "Olivia needs to understand. A daughter-in-law without an heir doesn't honor the name." Abigail's "sweet with poison. 4 losses and still the theatrics. If she kept busy, she wouldn't live in this drama." And Ryan, shameless. "Boutique depression. My parents cover the house." Each syllable pierced me. I remembered the late nights when Olivia would call without a voice. That's when I heard a whimper from the side porch. I turned and saw the chair, a potted plant covered in snow, and my daughter curled up, purplish fingers trying to warm her own skin. The rest you know. I ran, covered her, went inside. But before crossing the threshold, I swore. I promised myself that this night would produce a perfect chart. Ambient temperature, witness, exact quotes, time, everything. Because arrogance can make excuses, documentation can't. I took a deep breath, adjusted the scarf around Olivia's neck, and shoved the door with the strength of someone who learned to force open trauma room doors. The music stopped. Half the town might know those last names. I know protocols. "Good evening," I said, steady. "From now on, everything will be recorded." The silence inside the room was sharper than any emergency siren. The Whitmores froze with glasses in hand, silverware suspended. Olivia, curled on the couch, still trembled beneath my scarf. I knelt, touched her face, damp, lips blue. Years in the ER had taught me, mild hypothermia, fragile vitals, but the greatest pain wasn't in her body, it was in her soul. "She just wanted a little air," Eleanor said, rising from her chair like a bored hostess. The pearl necklace gleamed against her blue silk dress. "You know how young people exaggerate. Everything's under control." Control? I swallowed hard. How many times had I heard relatives say that while a patient faded on the bed? Ryan appeared behind his mother, shuffling his feet, a wine bottle still in his hand. "Close the door, Mom. She loves to dramatize, wants to play the victim on Christmas Eve." The short laugh he let out was the fuse. Olivia shrank even further, eyes fixed on the floor. Gregory adjusted his expensive custom New York suit and raised his voice. "Nora, you've always been blunt. So listen, a woman who doesn't continue the lineage needs to understand the weight she carries. My family built empires, CEOs, judges, bankers. What does your daughter add? Nothing." That sentence echoed like a cruel diagnosis. Years on shift had shown me people surviving with half a heart working. But there, in front of me, stood whole people who had become hollow by choice. Abigail leaned her elbows on the table, a poisonous smile. Depression is a spoiled person's excuse. While she locks herself in the bedroom, I take care of my 2 kids and still keep my design firm growing. I looked at Olivia, each word sticking in her like a needle. The table remained untouched, glistening turkey, silver flatware, bottles of ultra-rare wine, all in grotesque contrast to my daughter, too weak to hold a mug of tea. I drew a deep breath. This isn't theatrics, and it isn't being delicate. It's psychological abuse, and it ends now. I bent down, lifted Olivia in my arms again. With each step, melted snow ran off my coat, marking the floor like an entry record. I set her on her feet for a moment, adjusting the throw around her. "Dear Whitmores," I declared, "from today on, every word, every act against my daughter will be documented, and not by some former martial arts coach or a nosy neighbor, by a retired nurse who knows how to collect evidence and file reports no one ignores." Ryan tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. Gregory leaned back, narrowing his eyes. Abigail sighed, like someone watching a play, and Eleanor simply took another sip of wine. No one lifted a finger to help Olivia. Outside, through the glass, I again saw Jake's silhouette, hand on his radio, alert. A discreet signal from him reminded me I was not alone. Neither was Olivia. I held my daughter's hand and, in a low but steady voice, whispered, "You don't have to endure this anymore. Now we fight." The crackle of the fireplace clashed with the ice spreading through the air. Olivia struggled to breathe, eyes half closed, while I supported her against my shoulder. Inside me, the nurse assessed signs: cool skin, fine shivering, risk of a drop in blood pressure. But the mother felt something worse, the humiliation she had been suffering in silence. Ryan stepped closer, a cynical smile, like an attorney confident in a bought verdict. "Stay out of it, Nora. This is a matter of my marriage. You have no right to barge into my house." I lifted my face, steady. House? This mansion may have been bought with bank bonuses and startup investments, but a home isn't built of imported granite. It's built of respect, and that never existed here. Gregory stood at the head of the table. He carried himself like a man who had chaired boards and decided the fate of billion-dollar companies. "You forget who you're up against. My contacts aren't limited to Aspen. Washington owes me favors. Some little report isn't going to change the natural order of things." I felt my blood boil. How many times had I heard arrogant doctors minimize patients' accounts until a complete chart brought their whole defense down? I knew solid documentation can topple dynasties. Eleanor raised her glass. "Have a sip of Chateau Margaux, dear. You'll realize you overreacted." Her indifference insulted me more than Ryan's shouting. Abigail cackled, adjusting a diamond-studded bracelet. "That's right, Mom. Let Nora play heroine. Tomorrow, no one will remember this scene." Olivia let out a low, almost inaudible moan. I leaned in, stroked her damp hair. "I'm here, honey. Breathe with me. Inhale, exhale. You're not alone." Her eyes opened a little, wet, pleading. Suddenly, Gregory slapped his palm on the table, making the glasses vibrate. "Enough spectacle. Nora, take this act back to your clinic with your old colleagues. Here, the rules are ours. A woman who fails to produce heirs doesn't deserve a place at the main table." The words rang like a sentence. The silence that followed was heavier than any apnea on a heart monitor. I straightened my back, gripped Olivia's hand, and spoke loudly, clearly, to every person present, and to whoever was witnessing from the window. From now on, every insult, every act of exclusion, every threat will be recorded. And don't think your money buys the conscience of an entire town. Not every judge bows to crystal stemware. Ryan tried to step forward, but the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes betrayed the fact that he knew. I had seen too much, heard too much. The perfect party was over. I took out my phone, lit up the screen like flipping on a siren. "It's all saved. Do you want to keep going?" My voice was calm, but every syllable carried decades of authority earned in emergency rooms. And in that instant, I realized The fight wouldn't be just for Olivia. It would be against an entire empire propped up by surnames, full coffers, and a lack of empathy. The door was still vibrating from my shove when I lifted Olivia in my arms and walked outside. The cutting air hit her face. I shielded her head with my scarf. Jake stood on the porch, hand on his radio, gaze steady. "Need backup, Nora?" I nodded. "I need a witness." He took 2 steps, stared Ryan down over my shoulder, and spoke in a command voice. "Any attempt to obstruct their exit will be documented." Gregory smiled, confusing wealth with immunity. "Officer, go manage traffic. Everything's under control here." In the back seat, I wrapped Olivia in an emergency blanket I've carried since my ER days. The driver turned up the heater. "Where to?" "Near the hospital." As the car pulled away, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. The silence lasted a second longer than normal. Then a whisper. "You're going to regret this." The call dropped. The driver glanced at me in the rear view, but I saved the call log. My apartment is small but warm. Open kitchen, worn couch, simple frames. I laid Olivia in the guest bed, took her temperature with a digital thermometer, 95.5 degrees, made hot chocolate and chicken broth. While she warmed her hands on the mug, I called Dr. Linda Carter's clinic, a psychiatrist who respects patients, not last names. I got an appointment for the next morning. Jake showed up out of uniform, carrying a bag, hand warmers, thermal socks, a notepad. Brought incident report forms in case you want to start now. I sat at the table and filled them out line by line, like a trauma chart. Circumstances, witnesses, exact quotes, family's response, victim's condition, measures taken. I attached the photos and the timestamp of the anonymous call. Jake signed as a witness. "They've got friends at the top," he warned, but records beat selective memory. After he left, dusk fell. I was washing the mug when a sharp sound sliced through the silence. An envelope slid under the door. I picked it up with gloves, opened it carefully. A newspaper clipping of Gregory at a philanthropy gala and 3 scribbled words. "Do not interfere." I felt anger rise, clean, without shouting. I taped the clipping onto a sheet, dated it, photographed it, and sealed it in a zip-top bag. I went back to the bedroom. Olivia was finally asleep, her breathing more regular. I sat on the edge of the bed and promised in a low voice, "Tomorrow we're going to the hospital, to therapy, and to the courthouse. I'm going to take care of you, my daughter." We woke early. Olivia was lightly sweating, but color had returned to her cheeks. I gave her a warm bath, swapped the damp clothes for dry ones, and we headed to the appointment with Dr. Linda Carter. The front desk squeezed us in between patients. The office was simple: armchair, desk, lamp. The doctor listened without interrupting. Olivia spoke about the 4 pregnancy losses, the crying spells, the locked bedroom, the fresh air on the porch. I filled in the gaps she couldn't. Linda documented everything and was direct: major depression, risk of relapse, need for weekly therapy, and a psychiatric evaluation for medication. She handed over a safety plan, notes, and a report describing stressors, the family's statements, and exposure to the cold. "You're going to need legal protection," she said. "I can refer you to victim support, file a supplemental report." I nodded. We left with paperwork, appointments, and useful contacts. At the pharmacy, we picked up the first prescriptions and a better thermometer. Back at the apartment, I set up a wallboard, appointment calendar, medication schedule, important phone numbers, and an envelope just for medical reports and receipts. Olivia lay on the couch with a throw. "I'm not hungry." I warmed some broth and set it beside her. Jake knocked in the mid-afternoon, out of uniform, with fruit, fresh bread, and 2 cookbooks. "Maybe a little cooking will help organize your head," he said, without pushing. Olivia thanked him with a small nod. "I used to love apple pie," she murmured, staring at her hands. "Now it feels like everything I touch goes wrong." "Not everything," I said. bringing a cutting board and 3 apples. We sliced slowly, no rush, just small steps. Jake washed the pans, cleared space on the counter, preheated the oven. When the smell of pie filled the apartment, Olivia took a deep breath for the first time that day. Later, we added the night's events to the police report: time she was put outside, who was present, Ryan's comment, Gregory's reaction, the anonymous call, and the note. Jake emphasized that the local precinct could increase patrols in the area and suggested hallway cameras. I spoke with the building manager. He agreed to install a lens on our floor by week's end. That night, Linda called to check whether the medication's side effects were tolerable. It can cause drowsiness in the first 48 hours. I set out a glass of water, the pill, and a clock. Olivia fell asleep early. I stayed at the table reviewing the files. No flourishes. I summarized facts, attached proof, printed copies. I saved half the pie for tomorrow. I left the other half out, ready for our first peaceful breakfast since I'd returned. I texted Mr. James, the attorney who'd represented me with the hospital union when we challenged abusive shifts. He's in Denver and replied quickly. He could review the dossier by video call tomorrow afternoon and, if needed, travel to Aspen. Before bed, I thought about the next step. Medical report, check. Police report, check. Witness, check. Mr. James could be a start. But we'd still need strategy. We still needed the hardest piece. Someone willing to face the Whitmore name in the local courts, where favors carry weight. Who would have the courage and the skill to take this case in Aspen? The answer came by video call: Ava Bernstein, Mr. James's referral. Former federal prosecutor in Denver, now a partner at a boutique litigation firm that stares down rich families and tech founders without blinking. Hair tied back, voice direct, no media, no panic, facts, deadlines, and evidence preservation. Show me what you've got. I pushed the folders toward the camera. Dr. Linda Carter's reports, the police report, photos of the purplish hands, the anonymous call log, the note. Jake stepped into frame, introduced himself, and confirmed he had witnessed Olivia being taken in from the cold and the hostile stance at the door. Ava laid out the steps like building a care plan. 1. Supplemental report at the precinct adding the note and the call. 2. Protective order seeking to keep Ryan and his family away from Olivia's address based on psychological abuse and exposure to cold. 3. Litigation hold on the Whitmores. Mandatory preservation of evidence. Cameras, messages, emails, call records. 4. Cease and desist letter for harassment. 5. OB/GYN consult to document the pregnancy losses and undercut any fabrication claim. 6. Evaluate civil actions. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, IIED, harassment, defamation, and unjust enrichment based on money. Olivia diverted to the household. 7. Procedural strategy outside the local sphere of influence, if necessary. We can start in Aspen, Pitkin County, she explained. If we see unusual interference, we move for a change of venue, citing risk to impartiality. No leaks, I'm your only spokesperson. We agreed. She asked for digital copies in a secure repository, a duplicate on an offline flash drive, and a chronological spreadsheet. Airport moment, traffic stop with Jake, exact time I found Olivia, entry into the house, key statements, exit, arrival at the apartment, body temperature, contact with the clinic, the call, and the note. No adjectives, just fact, time, and source. That afternoon, we signed the engagement via e-signature. Within 20 minutes, Ava had couriered the letters: litigation hold, with sanctions threatened for spoliation, and cease and desist. She also filed the request for a 72-hour temporary protective order, with extension at the hearing. Jake, on our end, coordinated with the neighborhood patrol for night rounds. The building manager confirmed the hallway camera would be installed that same night. At 7:12 p.m., a black SUV slowed in front of the building and circled the block twice. I wrote down the plate and time, Jake, off duty, limited himself to documenting it as a private citizen, no use of police systems. At 8:03 p.m., the new camera captured someone dropping an envelope at our door. Gloves, cap. I picked up the package with a plastic bag and photographed everything, inside and out, before opening. Inside, a glossy magazine gala clipping with Gregory and a sticky note. Aspen remembers who's in charge. I sleeved it, dated it, stored it. Ava replied immediately, "Great. Chain of custody intact. First thing in the morning, file an addendum to the police report and send me the hallway video. I'll move to add it to the court record." She also asked us to disable comments on personal social media for now. "They'll try to spark a media fire to paint you as dramatic. Don't feed it." I agreed. Calmer now, Olivia took her meds on schedule and managed half a bowl of soup. "They'll claim you lock yourself away, that you don't help, that you fake symptoms," Ava said, looking at Olivia. "That's why I've already set an appointment with a women's health clinic to document a depressive picture after the losses and the impact of chronic stress. People who try to dehumanize lose against the sum of records." Olivia nodded, tired but relieved to see a path. Before ending the call, Ava was clear. "Don't argue with the Whitmores by text. Zero contact. Everything goes through me. And if they violate the protective order, call 911 and then call me." I closed the laptop with the sense that, for the first time, the asymmetry was starting to shrink. They had a last name and resources. We had a case built end to end. The next morning, between coffee and the precinct, another decision had to be made. Try for a same-day expedited hearing on the protective order and risk running into Gregory in the hallway, or wait for more evidence and go in with a heavier package. We chose the same-day expedited hearing. Ava coordinated by video call, while Jake and I went to the courthouse with Olivia. In the filing, we included Dr. Linda Carter's report, photos of the purplish fingers, the anonymous call log, the threatening envelope, and the hallway camera video. The on-call judge opened a virtual courtroom in 15 minutes. Ava appeared with a local associate to sign. Emergency request. Immediate risk. Zero contact for 14 days, with extension at the hearing. Ava summarized. The judge reviewed the exhibits and asked Olivia for an objective account of Christmas Eve. She spoke softly. Jake confirmed he had witnessed the scene and described pulling her in from the cold. On the other side, the Whitmore's attorney tried to quash it, claiming a family misunderstanding and that Olivia wanted fresh air. Ava didn't argue morality. She went back to facts and reports. 10 minutes later, the judge granted a temporary protective order. Minimum distance of 500 feet, no contact by any means, preservation of recordings at the Whitmore house, and service by the sheriff the same day. "Any violation, call 911, he said. I nodded. Olivia breathed easier. As we left, Ava fired off litigation hold emails with exact timestamps and requested priority with the Women's Health Clinic to document the history of losses and the stress impact. When they try to call depression a whim, technical reports dismantle that, she explained. I confirmed the appointment for 2 days out. That afternoon, a notice arrived from the clerk's office. The Whitmores had hired a massive Denver firm. Ava wasn't fazed. The bigger the team, the more tracks they leave. She began drafting a lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress, IIED, and harassment, with punitive damages, and prepared preservation requests to the phone carriers. At 7:41 p.m., the sheriff confirmed service had been effected at the mansion gate. Half an hour later, a masked number called. I ignored it. Jake stopped by to check the hallway camera. No suspicious movement. We gathered what we still needed for the supplemental police report and listed Olivia's prior medical records to show the attempts to conceive and the emotional collapse before Christmas. Ava also sent the cease and desist for harassment and threats, with a warning about sanctions for evidence destruction. I instructed the front desk not to allow visitors without my consent. We centralized all communication through the firm's email. No phone, no texts. I asked the building manager for copies of last night's entry and exit logs and attached them. By the end of the night, Ava suggested a plan B. If we notice atypical interference in the local court, we'll move for a change of venue. I wrote down the deadlines: return hearing on the TRO in 10 days, medical follow-up in 48 hours, new supplemental police report first thing tomorrow. Jake offered to drive us to the precinct and testify again if needed. Olivia ate a slice of apple pie. For hours, the apartment held no tension. I knew the peace was temporary. Injunctions calm things, they don't end them. Even so, it was the first concrete point in our favor. As I filed the papers, I recorded the answer to the earlier question. We went to the hearing immediately, and the order was granted. A short answer to the question left hanging. Their first counterpunch was trying to choke off the evidence. The day after the TRO, we walked into a family court hearing with Ava in front and Jake in the back. The Whitmore's attorney arrived with 2 associates and the smile of someone used to winning by attrition. Ava opened with facts: the psychiatric report, photos, the call and the note, the hallway video, and the history of pregnancy losses. She requested preservation of the mansion's interior footage. The other side raised a hand. Objection. The recording made on Christmas Eve is clandestine and violates privacy. That was Jake's strongest piece, the clear insults from Ryan, Eleanor, and Abigail. The judge listened to the clips in silence, furrowed his brow, and, after consulting the state code, ruled inadmissible. I felt the ground pull back a fraction. It wasn't a total surprise. Ava had already predicted the move. Still, it stung. Without the audio, the case would need to stand on reports, witnesses, and a pattern of conduct. Ava didn't budge. She then requested a reinforced spoliation letter, forensic access to the interior cameras, and preservation of the family's phones with a forensic exam of messages and calls. Opposing counsel chuckled. My client is a philanthropist. She doesn't sabotage anything. Ava shot back dryly. Great. People with nothing to hide preserve everything. The judge partially granted the request: immediate preservation of the home systems and a reminder of sanctions for destruction. I noted the deadline. Jake logged times and names in a pad. When Olivia spoke, the room seemed to shrink. No adjectives, just the sequence: 4 losses, belittling remarks, the freezing porch, the order to shut the door. Her voice broke only once. Gregory folded his arms. Eleanor stared at the ceiling. Ryan fiddled with his watch, not the Patek on the shelf, another one with a black band, and avoided meeting my eyes. Outside the courtroom, the local press tried questions. Ava steered us out a side exit. In the hallway, an associate from the rival firm muttered under his breath, "This dies at prelim." I wrote down the line, and we kept moving. In the elevator, my phone buzzed. An automated email from the security company confirming that someone had tried to access my floor camera account at 1:07 p.m. and failed. Within 2 minutes, Ava fired off an additional notice to the judge. At home, I reviewed the timeline. No one-liners, just times, documents, and names. Olivia fell asleep early. The medication was starting to stabilize her. Jake brought a cloud backup kit and showed me how to duplicate everything into 2 different services, plus a sealed flash drive. If they tamper with one, we've got 2 more. At midnight, a car slowed on the street again. I didn't go to the window. I just marked the time. I remembered what Ava kept repeating: don't get dragged into their theater. Our work was to build the case, piece by piece, theirs, to make noise. The question now was direct and uncomfortable. Without the Christmas Eve audio, what new element could flip the game at the next session? A detailed OB report, forensic access to the interior cameras, or the first documented violation of the protective order? Tomorrow we'd find out whether they'd crossed the line, and how recklessly. There was a first violation of the order, a car with Ryan parked less than 400 feet from my building at 7:12 a.m., captured by both the hallway camera and the front desk. The sheriff logged it and attached it to the case. It didn't overturn that day's session, but it opened a contempt investigation. In court, the room was packed. Ava organized the exhibits. Jake stood in the back, in uniform. Olivia sat beside me, hands cold. The judge entered, voice neutral. As to the request for dissolution, granted. As to the abuse allegations, denied for insufficiency of legal proof. I felt the air shift. Ava showed no reaction. She just took notes. The judge continued. Division of property. The majority of personal property and credits go to the respondent, who proved predominant contribution. Olivia lowered her head. I held her hand. Ryan smiled, straightening his tie. Eleanor gave Abigail a slight nod. Gregory leaned back as if confirming an old plan. I stood. Your Honor, there's a recorded violation from last night. Separate matter, he cut in. It does not alter the property ruling. The gavel came down. Papers rustled. A reporter turned on a camera. Ryan walked over to us. Tell your star attorney it's over. He spoke quietly, but the reporter's mic caught it. Jake stepped in fast, posture firm. Mr. Whitmore, keep your distance. Ryan took another step. Or what? You'll arrest me for breathing. Jake's fists tightened, tense. Olivia, crying, grabbed his arm. Please, don't. The room fell silent. The reporter filmed every move. I stepped between them. We're leaving. In the hallway, Ava caught up with us. Bad ruling, not a final one. We'll appeal and file a separate civil suit, and the protective order violation can change the criminal side. I showed her the sheriff's notification on my phone. I'm already requesting a specific hearing, she said, and I'll coordinate with the DA's office. Outside, people were waiting. An older woman touched my arm. I saw the Christmas Eve video. I'm so sorry. Another asked if she could message Olivia. I asked for privacy. Ava instructed us. No interviews. The firm speaks. We took the elevator up. Olivia cried quietly, leaning against the steel mirror. I handed her tissues. Jake walked us to the car and stayed behind to throw off photographers. At home, I warmed soup. Olivia took 2 spoonfuls and lay down. I reviewed the timeline, updated the contempt section, and saved it in 3 backups. Ava sent the draft of the appeal. Errors in weighing the evidence, disregard for the clinical history, and failure to grant requested discovery. No euphoria. This is a marathon, I replied. Okay. Late at night, my phone pinged. An anonymous account posted our exit from the courthouse with cruel comments about Olivia. Ava took screenshots, requested preservation from the platform, and said she'd look into digital stalking. I drew the curtains. Today we lost on property division and on recognition of abuse, but we gained a new piece, the recorded violation. The question is simple. If the Whitmores ignored the order in under 24 hours, what will they do when public pressure rises tomorrow? Will they back off or double down with online attacks and pressure already? Answer to the question, they doubled down. By morning, anonymous profiles were repeating the same line in local groups. Olivia made it all up. Screenshots reached me minutes apart. Ava compiled them. Data preservation requests, complaints for defamation, and cyberstalking. At the same time, the video of us leaving the courthouse, Olivia holding Jake's arm to head off trouble, went viral on city pages. Comments poured in. This looks like bought and paid for injustice. The first effect landed where it hurts in those circles. Reputation. A business column ran a terse note about embarrassments involving former bank president Gregory Whitmore. Donors asked for discretion at dinners. A client canceled an event at the mansion's ballroom. No one admitted guilt. Everyone recognized a reputational cost. Meanwhile, we kept to the basics. Olivia woke up better. She took her meds on time, ate oatmeal with banana, and went back to Linda's office. The doctor adjusted the dosage, suggested a pregnancy loss support group, and wrote a second, more detailed clinical letter. I left with the folder organized by date and document type. No grandstanding, just pieces that, together, hold the case up. Jake became a daily presence without intruding. Sometimes he showed up with simple grocery store flowers, other times with bagels and coffee. Stop by to see if you need anything. On Tuesday, he came with a small box. Inside, a keychain with an engraved aspen leaf. Aspen. "So you remember that new beginnings have seasons," he said, a little awkward. Olivia truly smiled for the first time. She clipped the keychain to her apartment keys. In the afternoon, Ava filed the appeal against the property ruling and the denial of the abuse claim, pointing out errors in weighing the evidence. She also requested a specific contempt hearing over the order violation, Ryan's car 400 feet away. The DA's office signaled it would call the building's driver and front desk as witnesses, along with the hallway video. Deadlines set, tasks assigned. By day's end, I took Olivia for a slow 2-block walk. Snow was thinning on the sidewalks. We stopped at a small bakery. She picked a cinnamon cookie. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to have children," she said, looking at the display. Before I could answer, Jake, waiting at the corner to keep us safe, stepped closer. "If that feels like a burden, I'll take it off the ledger," he said calmly. "Your family, with or without children." Olivia drew a deep breath and nodded. No scene, no audience, just a step. That night, Ava sent a summary. Public pressure helps, but it doesn't decide. What decides is paper, deadlines, and documented violation. I agreed. I organized the table: medical reports, police filings, preserved screenshots, Linda's letter, the condo association's note, the sheriff's proof of service, everything in its envelope. I slept little, but I slept. The building was quiet. No slow cars, no envelopes shoved under the door. For the first time since Christmas Eve, the apartment didn't feel like an outpost. It felt, again, like a livable place. Tomorrow, 2 fronts would move: the contempt hearing and the support group intake. If one landed as we hoped, the other would have a clearer path. At the contempt hearing, the camera sequence and the front desk log spoke for themselves. Ryan violated the protective order in under 24 hours after being served. The judge increased the distance to 1,000 feet, barred indirect contact through third parties, ordered electronic monitoring for 60 days, and set another hearing to evaluate further sanctions in case of recidivism. It wasn't a total victory, but it put on the brakes. The civil suit continues, and so does the appeal, and for the first time, the Whitmores had to hear a formal no from the very system they were used to bending in their favor. We left the courthouse with no interviews. We went home, warmed up a simple lunch, and called Dr. Linda. She advised fine-tuning the meds, suggested contacting a pregnancy loss support group, and recommended small routines: daylight, a short walk, regular meals, one household task at a time. I wrote it on the wallboard: Mon, appointment, wed, group, fry, follow-up. No grand goals, just consistency. In the group, other women told unfiltered stories. Olivia listened in silence, squeezing my hand. When it was her turn, she spoke a few sentences, true ones. No one interrupted. There were no judgments, no statistics thrown in her face, no what if. Just heads nodding in a quiet, "I know." On the way out, she breathed differently. I thought it was just me. "It's not," I said, "and it isn't your fault." The days that followed looked like a possible life. Jake kept stopping by to see if we were okay, with coffee, bread, and ordinary topics. He and Olivia got back into the kitchen. Warm salad, roast chicken, the apple pie she had said maybe one day. On the third try, the pie worked. It didn't become a movie symbol. It became a Tuesday night dessert. And that was enough. An invitation arrived from the Women's Health Clinic for a nutrition workshop. An email arrived from Ava with deadlines, motions, and updates on the forensic review of the Whitmore home systems. A letter arrived from the condo association confirming that the front desk attendant and the building's driver would testify. No euphoria, no slogans. Piece by piece, the case is gaining weight. In parallel, Olivia's life is regaining inches. In the mirror, the dark circles are still there. The look in her eyes is not the same. In April, the snow eased. I took Olivia to the park. No fanfare, no posts. We sat on a bench and watched kids run, dogs play on their leashes. She bit into a cinnamon cookie and leaned her shoulder on mine. Mom, I don't know if I'll ever call a child my own. I thought of how often that's been demanded of us, as if love were a spreadsheet. Honey, family is also the ones who stay when it gets hard. She looked at me, then at Jake, waiting a few steps away, discreet as always. I know, she said, simply. I won't romanticize it. The property ruling was unfair. We'll have months of appeals. The civil suit will be rough. Public opinion helps today, forgets tomorrow. But in here, where it hurt the most, there's been repair. Olivia no longer measures herself by airs or imposed silences. And I, who spent a lifetime caring for others, learned to turn care into strategy, documentation, deadlines, protection, rest, hot food, appointments kept. Face to face with big surnames and crystal stemware, what carried us across was the basics, done well. If you made it this far, thank you. This story is fictional, inspired by realities many people live through in silence. Names and places have been changed. The intention isn't to accuse, it's to remind family matter doesn't justify humiliation. If you've witnessed something similar, seek help, medical, legal, and from your community. If you're a neighbor, friend, or colleague, don't minimize it. I want to know, in your place, would you choose to ignore it to avoid trouble, or would you act, step by step, to protect the one you love? Tell me in the comments. And if this story strengthened you, like the video, subscribe, and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end of the video, I left 2 of the channel's most loved stories. They might offer insight and company to whoever needs it. Thank you for staying.